The Oakwood Conservatory of Music in Manhattan was a place of prestige where mahogany met marble and legacies were born in the echo of grand pianos. The fall air outside was crisp, but inside the concert hall, warmth radiated from chandeliers, velvet seats, and the expectant hum of an audience that had come to witness brilliance. Tonight was the annual Autumn Showcase, an elite gathering of renowned pianists, critics, donors, and rising stars. It wasn't just a recital, it was a battleground for musical excellence. Among the performers was Alexander Keane, the crown jewel of the evening. He was everything the conservatory celebrated, technically perfect, classically trained in Europe, and most notably aware of his own reputation. His tailored suit, slicked back hair, and cool expression completed the image, confidence bordering on arrogance. He had performed third on the program, tearing through a complex Liszt piece with machine-like precision. Every note landed sharply, a storm of control and calculation. The applause afterward was thunderous, earned yet expected. Alexander didn't bow for the audience. He allowed them the honor of watching him. During the intermission, guests mingled under the high-arched ceilings of the lobby, sipping champagne and analyzing performances in hushed, intellectual tones. That's when she appeared. Mariah Bennett walked in like she didn't belong there, but didn't care. Worn sneakers, a long wool coat, and a satchel slung over her shoulder. She looked out of place next to the polished elegance of the room, but something in her quiet, self-assured gaze made people notice. She didn't look at the chandeliers or the crowd. She looked at the grand piano on stage through the open auditorium doors. Alexander, leaning casually near the instrument and basking in small talk with two admirers, noticed her too. His curiosity was piqued, not by her looks, but by the way she seemed to see the piano. Not as a trophy, not even as a challenge, as if it were a conversation waiting to happen. He smirked. "You play?" he asked, raising an eyebrow, his voice loud enough for a few heads to turn. Mariah glanced at him, then at the piano and shrugged. A little. The smirk widened. "Well, if you've got the nerve, join me. A little friendly duel. Let's give these folks something to talk about." Some people chuckled, thinking it a joke. Others waited, half amused, half curious to see if the stranger would actually step up. Mariah didn't answer with words. She simply walked toward the stage. A murmur spread through the hall as people began returning to their seats early, sensing something unscripted. Alexander sat at one of the twin Steinways, stretching his fingers theatrically. He chose Rachmaninoff this time, bold, fast, relentless. He played like a man daring the keys to break under his command. His hands were a blur. His notes were impeccable. He ended with a flourish and stood. Applause followed. Not as loud as before, but loud enough to stroke his pride. Mariah sat at the second piano without ceremony. She didn't adjust the bench, didn't check the pedals. She closed her eyes, took a breath, and began. No one recognized the piece. It wasn't a famous composition. It wasn't showy or fast. It was simple. The opening notes were soft, almost uncertain, like footsteps on a wooden floor in the quiet of dawn. Then came the rhythm, gentle, patient, with the warmth of gospel and the heartbeat of jazz. Each chord told a story that words couldn't reach. The audience leaned in. Her hands glided with instinct rather than intention, like she wasn't performing, but remembering. The music expanded, shaped by sorrow and light, depth and restraint. There was something personal in it, something undeniably human. A few people in the front row had tears in their eyes and didn't know why. Alexander, arms crossed beside his piano, watched in stunned silence. When the final note fell, it didn't demand applause. It settled like dust in sunlight. Silence. Then slowly hands met in a rising ovation, less of a cheer, more of a collective realization. Something rare had happened. Mariah stood, nodded once to the crowd, and quietly walked off stage. Alexander didn't move. His hands were still in his pockets, but suddenly they felt empty. He had played to impress. She had played to speak. And everyone had listened. Backstage, the energy was different. It wasn't the usual buzz of praise or critique. It was confusion wrapped in awe. People whispered, wondering who she was, where she had come from, and why her name wasn't on the program. The stage manager flipped through the evening list, searching for a Mariah Bennett. She wasn't there. Alexander stood in the shadows behind the curtain, staring at the piano where she had just sat. He didn't know what to feel. He'd expected to crush her, perhaps embarrass her gently in front of the audience. What happened instead left him hollow and strangely humbled. He stepped away from the stage and moved through the side hallway toward the lobby, hoping to find her, but she was already gone. Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves blew across the pavement like scattered thoughts. Alexander stood for a moment beneath the lit archway of the conservatory, scanning the street. She wasn't there. No name, no business card, no Instagram handle. Just a tune that lingered in his mind, refusing to fade. The next day, the story had already spread. Unknown pianist steals the show at Oakwood. Elite performer challenged by mystery woman. One article even called her the ghost of Harlem jazz. But no one could find a single recording of her playing. She had slipped into the building like smoke and vanished just the same. Back in his private studio, Alexander sat in front of his own Steinway, hands hovering above the keys. He played a few bars from Chopin's. Etude Op. 10, number 12, flawless as ever, but it sounded empty, clean, sterile, like glass polished to the point of invisibility. He stopped. In his mind, he could still hear her melody. It had no name, no composer, no rules. It wasn't made to impress. It was made to express, something he hadn't done in years. For the first time in his life, Alexander questioned why he played at all. Was it for applause, perfection, prestige? Somewhere along the way, he had lost the reason. He had built a throne of ivory keys and sat on it, blind to the music that lived beyond technique. In the weeks that followed, he tried to recreate her piece from memory, not to copy her, but to understand. He started improvising, something he hadn't dared do since his student years. His fingers stumbled at first. He played wrong notes. He let go of metronomes. He explored sound instead of controlling it. And slowly something began to change. He started playing at small venues again, jazz bars, community centers, places he once considered beneath him. He played what he felt, not what was expected. People noticed, not because he was perfect, but because he was honest. And honest music, like Mariah's, resonated in a way rehearsed brilliance never could. Months passed, and Alexander found himself in Harlem one Saturday afternoon, wandering after a local performance. He passed a small cafe with a handwritten sign, "Live Piano, Saturdays at 3. Curious, he stepped inside. It was a modest place. Brick walls, a few paintings, coffee and cinnamon in the air. A small, upright piano sat in the corner. A woman sat there, fingers gently coaxing a slow tune out of the keys. It was her. Mariah didn't look surprised to see him. She smiled but didn't stop playing. Her eyes were closed. She finished her song before she acknowledged him, like a chef finishing a dish before lifting her head. "Looking for something?" she asked softly. Alexander nodded. "I think I found it." They spoke for a while, about music, about meaning, about how sound could be both a weapon and a balm. She told him she never cared for stages. Music, she believed, belonged where people lived, not just where they dressed up to listen. He didn't ask her to teach him. He just asked if he could come back and listen again. And he did, every week. In time, they played together, not as rivals, not as student and teacher, just as people who had finally remembered why music mattered in the first place. No stage, no lights, no applause. Just two souls and 88 keys between them.